Well, hello there, friend, and welcome back. Today, I have an amazing episode to share with you. Today, we are focused on a conversation on how you can support your expectant parents and birth parents, no matter where you are in your adoption journey. So, stick around. In case we haven't met yet, my name is Amanda, and I'm an adoptive mom of two on a mission to make your adoption easier, faster, and more affordable. One of the ways that I do that is through videos like this. So make sure that you subscribe and ring the little bell icon so that you get notified each and every time I release a new video. Today, we are in for a special treat, friends. We have Kim from Birth Moms Today joining us to give us a perspective that maybe us as hopeful adoptive families don't often think about as much as maybe we could. And really, our conversation is going to be focused in two specific areas. One area on how you can support someone that is considering adoption, so supporting your expectant mothers. And the other area we're going to focus on is how you can really support after placement. This is an area that I think us as hopeful adoptive families are always wanting to learn more about, and how we can really show love, honor, and respect to our children's first families. And I think Kim has a really unique perspective. She also does some amazing work to serve our communities and really to help our children's first families process through their grief as it relates to the adoption journey, and really help them see the beauty and the kindness that really can come from adoption overall. So I know you're going to find a lot of value from today's conversation. So let's dive right in. Well, hello there, Kim, and welcome to the My Adoption Coach podcast and YouTube. We are so thankful for having you on the show today.
Thanks so much, Amanda.
Well, thank you again so much, Kim, for agreeing to be on the show today. We really do appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come and share some tips with us. Would you mind to share a little bit about your background and really what's led you to where you are today?
Sure, Amanda. Thanks so much for having me today. My journey started many years ago. When I was 15, I was pregnant and I placed a child for adoption. And back then, adoptions were closed. So the process was a whole lot different. I got maybe 2 typed up pieces of paper. There were no photos, there were no videos, and that was basically what you had to choose from. So I chose a family, and I actually chose a family that had another child that was adopted, because I thought it would be really nice for my son to grow up with a sister who was adopted as well. So time went by, and I had been able to give him a letter when he was first born that the adoptive couple, said they would share with him when he was older. So a lot of years went by, and my children knew that they had a sibling. That was something I felt really, was important to not keep that from them. And we were all kind of hopeful that one day maybe we would see, my son again. And when his 18th birthday came and we didn't hear anything, and then his 21st birthday, I started to wonder, and I was really hopeful that, still maybe, we would hear from him. And then one day when he was 23 years old, I got this phone call, and someone asked for me by my maiden name. And at first I thought, oh, that's odd. Maybe this is like a bill collector. So I kind of, just ignored the call, and they called back again. And when I answered, I was like, I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong number. And the lady on the other end said, are you Kim Noeth? Did you place a son for adoption many years ago? And did he have blue eyes and you put him in a beautiful blue outfit before you placed him with a particular family? And I dropped the phone. I couldn't believe it. I was just sobbing. This was probably like the first time in 20 something years that I had really, come back in touch with this situation. So of course I was excited, and you always want to believe that you're a match. And, so here we went through some of the preliminaries of reaching out to each other. And right when we thought, we were pretty sure we were a match, I said, my son will know me because I sent a letter with him. And wouldn't you know, my son responded with the first line to my letter.
Oh.
And then I responded with the next line, and it still brings me to tears today because it was such a beautiful moment where we just connected with each other and knew that, for sure we were a match. And that's kind of what started our journey together. We got to know each other. I flew out to California to meet his partner, who's now his husband. And we just had, it's just such a great time, talking and getting to know each other. And it was like this person that I knew, but I hadn't seen for a really long time. And our relationship continues to grow today. And but back then, when we first met, I went online because I thought, let me see what resources are out there for women that have placed. And much to my surprise, a whole lot hadn't changed, in all these years. So one of the first things I did was I started an online support group. And at first we had 4 members, and today there's over 2,000.
Woohoo!
Yeah, it's a great place. It's a safe place for women exclusively that have placed a child to be able to come and share their hearts, privately and get the support that they need. I did try doing some local support groups, but I really found that this is a private issue and that, healing takes place more times than not in private settings than in public settings. So in addition to the workshop, I kind of use that as a classroom to learn what are some of the issues that women that have placed a child are dealing with today, and I found, wow, they're really similar to what, I experienced and other women that had placed years ago experienced. So I took all that learning and I created a workshop called the Post-Adoption Journey, where I help, birth mothers after they place to walk through the adoption journey. And, we go over a lot of the issues that they might deal with. So that's been a real, incredible resource that I'm proud of and that is really, helping a lot of women out there today.
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your journey and your authentic, real story in such great detail. I know that is really touching as a hopeful adoptive parent or as an adoptive parent on my side, just to hear that and to hear the love and the connection that, really kind of rekindled after all of those years. That's amazing. And really thank you for serving our community in this way. I do agree with you. We stumbled upon each other on Instagram,
Yeah.
and I started doing a bit more research about what you do and your services. And I think it's just phenomenal. So thank you so much for serving our total triad this way. I think it's really amazing.
You too, Amanda. I think there's such a need, especially for single moms that have to walk this journey alone and for adoptive couples. As much as the agencies, can help them, they're busy with a lot of the legalities and the issues that they have to deal with, that it's nice that you can come alongside these couples and give them that personal support that they need. Because I think that support is so necessary when you're entering into such a complex relationship as the adoption experience really is.
You're totally right. And no matter where you are in your adoption journey, from a hopeful adoptive parent perspective, whether you're working with an agency, and especially if you're self-matching, that support element for both parties is so really important. And I often think that, maybe my own perception, that the birth mother support is often the step that gets overlooked, especially when we're self-matching.
Yes.
And it gets into these tricky conversations. And what I think really is the root of all of that is really coming from a place of love and respect. And that's really what you're intending to give. And I think your services of support is really a great resource and tool for hopeful adoptive families to really demonstrate that love and respect that they have for their expectant families or their children's first families. I'd love for you to share a little bit more about that resource, if you don't mind.
Sure. I think it's such a great way that, an adopting couple can give back into the life of their child's birth mom, in a life-changing way, like she has done for them, and how she heals is going to affect them as well as the child growing up. If she
Yes.
doesn't have an outlet where she can, release some of her feelings and talk them through, lots of times she ends up, sharing some of that with the couple. And that's really hard to, deal with when you're first, getting used to even just taking care of a newborn,
Yeah.
and not intentionally, but you get busy and sometimes she can be overlooked. So one of the things I love about, the work that I do is I personalize in each birth mom, helping her individually so that she's not alone, because this can be a very lonely process and not a whole lot of people really understand, the complexities involved.
Yeah, you're right. It really can be a very lonely process. And that's why I think that, conversations like this today is really just a jumping off point for people to get resources and to think differently about the total triad and how we can really support each other in this. I'd love if you would take just a minute to give maybe a few tips for those that are just starting their adoption journey from a birth mother's perspective.
Sure. First, I'll talk about, what are some things that you can do to support an expectant mom, before the adoption even takes place. And
Great.
I think the biggest one would probably be educate yourself. Get out there, read different resources, learn things from all the sides of the triad, read stories from the adoptees, from other birth parents, from other adoptive couples, and see today we have a lot more voices. Many more voices are sharing their stories, and we didn't have that in the past. There really wasn't a platform for people to share what's worked for them, and even some of the struggles, so that today couples can avoid some of those very same things that other people had to kind of learn, trial and basis along the way.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's honestly the entire reason why I started this, right? I made several, what I look back and just say like, oh, those were horrible mistakes along the start of my journey. And that's what led me here, was just to share that with others so that they didn't have to repeat those same mistakes. So wow, that's a really powerful tip.
Thank you. Another tip would be let the expectant family initiate contact. I think it's really important that you make yourself available, but that you give her the time that she needs to process all this.
Yeah.
Initially she might come to you with some questions, and that's something too that you might want to discuss. If you're self-matching, you're going to be the liaison, between you and the communication with the expectant family. But even if you're working with an agency, it's important to find out, how do they handle that process, and can you give them a contact point so that once they do make a connection, with an expectant mom that seems interested, she has a way to reach out to you and get some of the answers to things that might be a little bit deeper than you just have, highlighted in your information in your profile book, or other resources that you might make, openly available for her.
Yeah, I think that's really great. And a lot of my self-matching couples really talk about how having that connection, like one-to-one, is so important to them.
Mhm.
And I know that that's not necessarily comfortable for everyone. Like you said, maybe some, expectant moms are like, I really do want an intermediary, that buffer.
Mhm.
But I do really think that having just the open and honest heart about the conversation is really important. That's a great tip.
And I think you should also not worry if you don't hear back from her. Don't get all upset and stressed out and think, oh, she's just not interested in you. She might just be processing stuff, and life is happening. This is an overwhelming decision that she has to navigate. And there's a whole lot of other things going on at the same time. So try
Mhm.
not to get too stressed out if you don't hear back, and just leave a way that she knows that she can reach you, so that when she does have some follow-up questions, or she does want to reach out to you, she knows exactly where she can do that.
That is a really great point. And I know it's the waiting period is hard, and you get, as a hopeful adoptive family, you get so excited because you're having a conversation, but you
Yes.
don't realize on the other side of the table, she's dealing with a lot. She's dealing with a lot of emotions and life. And that is a difficult balance. But I think if you come at it from a place of letting her lead the conversation, then it's naturally going to flow a little bit more easily and organically.
And that's the way it is in most relationships, especially new ones. You get to know some preliminaries, and then you spend the time, digging deeper and finding out, more truths about each other.
That is great, Kim. Wow, such valuable tips. Thank you.
Sure. Another really important one is communication. We may have an idea of what something looks like, and that idea may be very different from what the expectant family's idea is. So I think, especially in the adoption relationship, it's so important to communicate early on as to what your plans and desires are. And even further, what does that really look like in the everyday and further down the line? Sometimes, asking her what's important for her that you uphold in the life of the child, she may need time to think about that. That's a pretty loaded question, but it's an important one. So that's one where, you might want to spend some time really thinking through, what does this relationship look like to you in the everyday, and down the line.
That is a great tip.
And I think how you represent yourself matters. If you say you're all about ethics, and, that you really care, it's important that you align yourself with resources and agencies that feel the same way as you do. Otherwise, there's going to be a real conflict of interest when it comes down to being able to actually live out some of the things that you desire to be part of that relationship.
I agree. And I think that supporting and having support services lined up for her, as well as just the fundamentals, I believe, of a proper adoption, where you each have your own representation, you each have
Yes.
your own support systems. Those things really are the unspoken way that you can communicate respect and love and support all the way throughout the journey.
That's so true. And that's actually my last tip or my last point for couples that, prior to the adoption, support really matters, and sometimes we get so involved in the necessary, things that we have to do, like the home study and the paperwork and all of that process, that we forget how much we would benefit just from someone walking alongside of us and encouraging us and checking in on our emotional well-being. That's a really important component. And that's why I love that you do that, on the side of the, hopeful parents. You give that outlet for them to be able to discuss some of the stuff that doesn't always have the time to be discussed when you're going through the important details, of the actual adoption. And even for the expectant mom, she needs a place that she can feel comfortable to share, especially if she's considering parenting. That's something that lots of times she might not be as apt to share with the agency. And you can have, your hopes and expectations set up in something that maybe, she's been giving some of the clues, but no one's been picking up on them, that, maybe for her, she's found a way to parent. And of course, if that is, something she can do, that is the best option for the child. So we're really happy for her and for the child. But we also want the couple to, also know that ahead of time, so that they're not having to go through that whole, grief process as well, when they're expecting something to be different than it really is.
Yeah, I really I love that tip. Having walked through that in a couple of different ways in my own journey, and honestly, is what led me to want to help others to self match. Because I think when you have that one to one relationship, you can pick up on those clues as long as you're open to it, versus having the intermediary of the agency. So in my case, when we disrupted at 7 days, she was obviously considering parenting. And I
Mhm.
just wish that that would have been something that the agency had really picked up on and shared with me open and honestly. From a hopeful adoptive parent side, of course, I completely agree with you that her choosing to parent is her obviously her right and the best thing in the interest of the child. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other opportunities where her choosing to parent doesn't mean that it's not a great thing, right? Like if she wants to place, obviously amazing as well.
Mhm.
It's just such a difficult and tricky situation that you do have to really be open and honest and make peace with the right opportunity will come along. I often talk about this concept of ideal expectant mother, and people are, kind of look at me a little funny. They're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, it's not an ideal situation if you're not a good fit. Both of you are not a good fit. If you can't provide what she's looking for, and if she really doesn't want to place and you're not the right fit for her, then honestly, as much as you really want this opportunity, don't push it. Don't, you don't want to badger someone into this. That's not the point here. So I really love your tip there. That's amazing.
And that also, makes me think how you tell your story matters. Right now there's so many couples adopting and there's not as many women placing. And in order for her to find you, you need to tell your story in a way that she can pick up on those clues. Because many times an expectant mom will place with a family who has certain qualities that are, close to what maybe she or the birth father have represented in their life.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that they have someone to help them through that process. How do you tell your story, and, being able to bring that out and share the power in that. So many times, there's, just because you can do it yourself doesn't mean you should. There's a lot of wisdom and help out there. And right now, especially, agencies are capping their lists, and it can be really overwhelming to know, how to get the best, help possible, in such a vulnerable situation.
Yeah, you're completely right. Your story and how you tell your story really is a critical step in your overall journey. I know that was the key for us in matching so quickly each time. And that's the reason why I feel so called into this work and helping others. I mean, I've worked in marketing for well over 20 years. I always feel so old when I say that, but storytelling in an authentic way is what's really going to make that connection. Because to your point, she needs to be able to see the life that she wants for this child in the life that you live each and every day. And so being able to tell that really clearly and succinctly, and doing it through different profile vehicles like, Instagram or Facebook or your profile book and websites and things of that nature, really begins to make that complete package where she can get to know you on a easier level without a little bit more of that emotion involved,
Mhm.
until she's ready to have that initial conversation with you. It really does make a difference.
That's so true. And sometimes couples feel like they feel icky, about marketing. And it's not marketing. It's really giving clues, because without the clues, she can't find you.
That's
So,
right.
I think it's all in how, we approach it, and how we, tell our story. Like you said, it is one of the most effective ways possible.
Wow, this has just been amazing thus far, and I know we still have more to go, but thank you. That is just incredible. Do you have any tips for people that have already placed on how and adopted and how they can support their children's first families?
Absolutely. One of the best tips, again, one of the first tips that we talked about prior to placement, that's just equally as important after, is education. Educate yourself now that you have adopted, learn more about open adoptions, find out what things have been working for people in these relationships, stay current. Lots of new resources are being created as people, themselves learn and have more awareness. There's more resources available. So it's important to stay current and properly educate yourself, and it's okay to make mistakes, or to feel silly. Sometimes it's hard to reach out to people, especially, I think, being educated around the customs and traditions of the child that you adopted is really important. And it's not enough just to learn and know about them. You need to expose yourself and the child to people that represent that culture and that heritage. That's one of the most important ways that we learn, is by being around those who share our same heritage. And, like I was saying a minute ago, sometimes that can feel vulnerable or silly, but with the right intentions, the right people are going to welcome you with open arms. So if you can't be part of the child's family, you can still reach out to other people who share the same culture and the same heritage, and the child will benefit greatly, from that exposure.
That's great. And I think that's a really great way to honor the child's first family. That's amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. And the second tip would be, set up boundaries early. One of the most comforting things that you can do for your child's birth mom is help her to know what she can expect ahead of time, so that she's not anxious and stressed out, wondering if she's ever going to hear from you again. It's hard to sometimes think down the line, but spend some time getting, to know what works for you, thinking about how, you react in certain scenarios, and how you best, can share things over time, schedule wise. If you know that it's going to be hard for you to remember to do certain things, set up a plan, so that it's at the, second Saturday of every month, you're going to send out an update, or, talk ahead of time, like you should be doing before you even match on, what is this relationship going to look like? So that if there are things that you want to include, like visiting, you have some sort of a structure planned ahead of time. And she's not just anxious, worrying, if she's ever going to hear from you again, because you'll be busy. And, that in that busyness, she's going to feel, a little bit forgotten. So it's important to kind of know what to expect before, you even start, incorporating schedule.
That's a really great tip. And it's actually something that's becoming more and more prevalent, especially in self matching. I was speaking with one of my clients the other day, and she said, how do I really show her that I'm not going to forget about her? And I said, you need to be intentional with your plan. Let's, intentionally write out what works for you, and have a conversation and understand if that works for her, and have points of flexibility along the way. Are you, is it, pictures and letters every, month, or, or do you want to communicate through social media? Do you want to set up your own private Facebook group where you just upload things for her, and then she can invite whomever she wants to it, and just, but be intentional about when you're going to meet and how you're going to share things up front, and dare I say, almost like put it in a contract type of a approach.
Absolutely.
Because to me, that's, again, communicating love and respect, that I want to tell you what I feel like I can do and what I can do once I'm parenting, because it's not that I'm forgetting about you. It's just, to your point, I'm busy because I'm caring for a child.
And I think it's important to have a contact point that she can always reach out to you.
Yes.
Life happens. Sometimes expectant families are going through their own trials. Sometimes they move a lot. And it's really, nice for them to know that, if they are do move and they miss an update, that they can always reach out to you and know how that they can, get in touch with you and the child.
Yeah, we in our particular case, we have a phone number that's specific only that they have. So that way I know that if I ever get a phone call through
Right.
that Google Voice
Mhm.
number, I know it is only them. There are a couple of like robocalls that have started popping up and I get really excited. I'm like, oh, it's not her. And then they each, my son and daughter's birth mothers each have an email address, and only those two women in the entire world have that email address. And so that way I know no matter where they are in the world or where we are in the world, we have a way that we can easily get in contact with each other super fast.
I think that's so important. And you really do ease her anxiety and remind her of the beauty of why she chose you when you do send photos and updates. You allow her to see that baby that she placed growing up into a child that's being loved and cared for. And that's a really healing tool for, a birth mother.
Yeah, something that I particularly find comfort in is whenever I met our birth mothers, I wrote down, I asked them why they picked us, what was the reason why for us. And then I make an intentional point to reflect that back in the communication that I share with her so
Yeah.
that she still feels continually grounded in the choice that she made, being authentic to the lives that they
I
have.
love
Oh
that.
goodness, I'm gonna tear up
I
just
know,
talking about it.
keeping that integrity that you first started with throughout the whole process. And that's powerful.
Yeah. Sorry, I did not mean to tear up there. Goodness.
Hey, this is tearing up stuff right here.
The emotions of the triad are real, aren't they?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So another way you can support an expectant mom is to tell the truth in love to the child about, the expectant or the birth family at this point, after the adoption takes place. You're not always, sometimes the truth isn't always pretty, but how we represent, and how we leave judgment behind, knowing that at any point the expectant family or the birth family, their whole life can change. So if they're in a great place in their life, that's incredible. Definitely include them. If they're struggling, be patient and recognize that, they're going to grow over time as well. And sometimes, you don't know a whole lot about the birth family. And that's okay too. Just be willing as your child asks questions and as they share things to let them know that, you'd love to know too, and that this isn't a topic that you're, uncomfortable to talk about, but that this is one that, you're right alongside of them, wanting the best for them in this too.
Yeah, I think that is tremendous. It is from an adoptive parent side, when they do get older and start having more questions, it's always been something honest and open that we've shared in our family. But as they've had more questions, I just always want to err on the side of love and respect whenever I don't have the answer to those questions. And so it's, if the honest answer is, I'm not sure, we'll have to ask her,
Mhm.
then just that period, full stop, with no judgment attached, to me is the best way you can honor the child's first family.
And it's not easy, even especially for a birth father, for him to have to, show up if he is actively involved. Sometimes it can be overwhelming as you see the couple doing what you maybe feel like you should have done as a man, and that can cause you to shut down. And for a birth mother coming in and out of the life of the child and then having to leave again, that's overwhelming too. And sometimes they need to take a break, but that doesn't mean that that they don't want to know. They just, sometimes this gets heavy and they have to step aside, and they'll be back once they're able to process it.
That's a great tip. Good perspective.
All right, another important tip is stay committed. Some days it's going to be really hard, and that's why support is needed. Like we mentioned before, you might be the only one holding the line at times, but your child needs you to be willing to do that. This is a marathon, not a sprint. So it's
Sure.
important to remember that this is a lifelong thing and you're going to be learning things as you go. But you can, dream with your child and give them a narrative so that they don't have to fantasize a narrative. If they ask you, I wonder if my birth father was athletic or, musical. You can simply say, I wonder that too, or I bet so because you're pretty talented. And little answers like that mean so much because they show that you're willing to put your ego aside, and that you're also willing to represent the truth and love and to tell what you know, and even to just be part of what you don't know, with the child in their journey too.
That is a phenomenal tip. That's great.
All right. And last, provide outlets, reinforce your commitment by providing outlets for everyone involved. Just a simple thing like a journal gives a child a safe place to kind of record their thoughts and their feelings. Also recognizing that you need support. You're going to need a place to go to balance some of the new things that come up in the relationship. It can be overwhelming. Just being a parent is tiring. So having, support and coaching along the way for yourself is very important throughout the whole process. And also having an outlet for the child. There's so many things out there, even play therapy, that gives a child a way to disassociate kind of from themselves and do a scenario where they can act out certain scenarios that they're maybe, not as comfortable with being the person talking about. And that gives them an outlet to process some of this because, adoption is beautiful, but it's also extremely complex. And I don't think that you can properly what every experience is going to be like because everybody in it is different and how everybody's going to respond is always going to be different. And that's why support is so necessary, especially for each member throughout the entire, post-adoption journey.
I think that is so, so important. I think us as adoptive families, we often focus on the end of the road, so to speak, being finalization. But I would
Right.
argue that it's really just the beginning of the road. It's
The
just,
marriage starts.
yes, exactly.
And if it's
Exactly.
going to end in divorce, it's because you're not working at it and you're not doing the things that are necessary for a good relationship to grow. But if you're working hard at it, then it's going to turn into a beautiful place where everybody knows that they're loved, that they're supported, that it's a safe place to be able to really share what you're feeling and to figure it out together. Because this isn't, this is new for everybody. Nobody knows exactly how this is supposed to go until you get in there and you start doing the work that's necessary.
Yeah, and every journey is so different. And that's why it's really important that you surround yourself with resources from the beginning to the end of the journey, so to speak. The end of the journey being just like into parenting, right? But I think that's why it's so beautiful that you, throughout the every kind of portion of the triad, have a wealth of resources today at your fingertips, unlike, maybe what existed back when you originally placed your child. So again,
Mhm.
thank you so, so much for being such a great resource for our community. I'd love for you to share a little bit more with our community about how they can find you and work with you and learn more about your services.
Sure. One of the ways that I work specifically with birth moms is through coaching. And we have calls where we talk a little bit about their adoption story. They're able to share some of the struggles they're going through. And then the post-adoption journey is an online course that I created that deals with a lot of the issues that a birth mother is going to face post-adoption. Things like, having to balance watching another couple raise their child. There's some natural jealousy that will arise there. Many times, a birth mother can be very focused on some of the pain that she experienced during the pregnancy and childbirth, that she forgets other parts of the story. And we kind of look back and remember the whole beautiful story so that she has, the story to share with the child as they grow, so that they can know they weren't just adopted, but they were born and they were loved as well. Grief is a very important part of the adoption journey. A natural response to loss is grief, even in a good adoption. So in the post-adoption journey, there's, a course on grief and how to see the hidden messages there. We talk a little bit about relationships. There's going to be relationships on the journey that a birth mother encounters, and she needs to know how to best represent herself in the story. Communication is so hard today, especially as we have so much technology to take the place of real, one-on-one, that a lot of my, workshop helps her to be able to communicate with the adoptive family, to be able to share, how she's feeling, to be able to show up in an emotional, healthy way for the child. Because this whole journey is really about what's best for the child. And that requires that us adults, rise up and put our ego aside and do what is best for the child. And that's not always easy. Sometimes that's really hard, and we need training and we need support around that. So the post-adoption journey is where she can come and get that support. Some adoption agencies are including this program as a regular part of their adoption care, which I love. And other adoptive couples are reaching out and they're paying for, the membership so that their birth mothers can go through the course. As much as I'd love to see birth mothers be able to pay for their own care, many times they're struggling just to get back on their feet after the adoption takes place. And this is one thing that many times they'll just stuff, down deep and not really deal with because there's other issues in their life that they're having to deal with first. So what I love about the post-adoption journey, it's a place that they can come when they're ready, in the privacy of their home, to get the healing that they need, whether it's right away or whether it's 5 or 10 years down the line. And, I'm always there to support and encourage them, because I think this can be a really lonely journey, and everyone needs a little support and encouragement in life. So I purposely feel like my calling is to be that support and encouragement for women that choose adoption for their child's future.
Wow, that is so amazing. Thank you so much. And I think you touched on two things that I really want to make sure the audience hears really clearly. Sometimes this is included with an agency services, and sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
And then definitely when you're self-matching, this type of support is definitely on the overlooked scale, if you will. And so I really urge everyone to really consider how you can really show love and respect and support through the relationship that you're establishing. So no matter which way you're matching, make sure that you're getting support services for your expectant moms and your birth mothers along the journey, from a total perspective. And of course, I highly recommend Kim and her services at Birth Moms Today, because I think that it's really important. I know I have found value in just the little bit of time that I've spent with Kim, just understanding that in ways that I can do better in supporting my children's first families. So Kim, that's your services are just amazing. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Amanda. And sometimes, adoption agencies do have support, but it's not always easy for the birth mom to go back to the place where she experienced some of the trauma around the adoption.
Yeah.
So, sometimes they feel the services that they have, are a good support, and they are, but I think we need more than that, because a birth mother is not always ready to heal on the first Thursday of the month just because a meeting is being held, and a yearly breakfast, honoring her, doesn't meet the needs that she has on a daily and weekly basis. This journey is very daily. It's very, you don't know when the triggers are going to occur, that sometimes, bring you back here. And that's why it's important that there is an ongoing type of support that is personalized just for her.
Yeah, I love that. Where can our audience go to learn more about you?
They can reach out to Birth Moms Today at my website. I'm also on Facebook. There's information there about the post-adoption journey. I also, meet with couples when they need help communicating with the expectant mom, and years later, the birth mother, just to kind of help them navigate and know some of the ways that they can best support her as well.
That's amazing. And I think you told me you have a little special gift for those that want to come and learn more about your services. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. I created a resource to help, couples that are considering adoption, parents that are, thinking about adopting, to be able to know how they can support their child's expectant mom or birth mom, both before and after the adoption. So I'll have a resource that they can pick up and, get a little bit more of an in-depth detail to some of the things that we're talking about here today.
Thank you, Kim. That is phenomenal. And as always, I will certainly link to you and everything, and to this amazing resource that you have in the show notes. I think that is just amazing.
Thanks so much. I think that what you're doing is extremely valuable too. Sometimes the adoptive couple even can be overlooked, because everybody is focused on the child and on the birth parents. And I think in order to be a good parent, parenting's hard. You need support. And I think that it's valuable that, couples can reach out to you and have this support available to them both before and after the adoption takes place.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate that. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on the show. It has been phenomenal to get to spend time with you. And I know that our audience is going to find tons and tons of different tips in here that they're going to need to re-listen and re-watch this a few times so that they can really take action on what you're suggesting here. So thank you again so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Amanda.
Well, friend, I hope you found a tremendous amount of value in the conversation with Kim today. Isn't she just lovely? She is just so amazing on how she really is focused on supporting and understanding all sides of the triad. So I really do hope that you'll take her offer of the free ebook up and go check out the link in the show notes so that you can learn more about her services and about really how you can support and respect your children's first families. And if you're wanting to learn more about self-matching your adoption, make sure to check out the other resources and videos located where you're listening or watching this so that you can learn more about how you can successfully self-match your adoption, including how to support your children's first families. Remember, anything's possible with the right plan and support, and I've always got your back every step of the way. You can do it, friend, and I'll see you soon.